Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
And welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. Many say Vice President Kamala Harris's policies are dangerous for our country. She has said in the past that she does not believe those who illegally cross our borders are criminals. She's also talked about reimagining, defunding police, and decided not to attend Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech before Congress. She did meet with him, however, afterwards privately, and also made some statements afterwards, too, as well, that a lot of people have been talking about. Well, our next guest has a perfectly timed brand new book that deals with some of these extreme policies seen within Vice President Kamala Harris and others in her party. And joining us now is Joe Concha, best-selling author, Fox News contributor, and media and politics columnist. His brand new book is called Progressively Worse: Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. It is a great title. And Joe, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. What a great introduction. And I'll Venmo you that amount that we talked about beforehand for that great introduction. I appreciate that, Rita. Thank you.
You are welcome. And by the way, it's sincere because boy, is it perfectly timed. I feel like your book. So many people are saying, wow, these views of whether it's defund the police or whether it's wide open borders, they're deeply concerning. And they're obviously being talked a lot about this election season.
It's everything the Democratic Party has become. And in the book, Rita, progressively worse. I mean, we got to remember that John F. Kennedy, right, the most popular president of our lifetimes, he was at 70% approval, obviously, throughout his 3 years, cut way too short, obviously, in that November day in 1963. But he was for cutting taxes, right, during a recession. Wow, that's a Republican thing to do. Or he was for beefing up the military, stared down Khrushchev. He rejected racial quotas. He would be an extreme MAGA Republican today if John F. Kennedy were alive and were running for president. Then you even have, like, Jimmy Carter, Democratic president who was pro-life in the Oval Office. They have become extinct in the Democratic Party all the way down through the Senate, through Congress. It's simply not allowed. Bill Clinton, who, look, I get a little flack for this, admittedly, but 1996, I voted for the guy. All right, I was young. It was the first election I could vote in because I saw a country with peace and prosperity, and I saw a guy who was working with Newt Gingrich to achieve a balanced budget amendment, for example. We had budget surpluses. He said the era of big government was over. He ended the welfare state, all of those things. I could agree with. So I'm like, I don't care if you have a D next to your name. You seem like you want to do for the betterment of the country, so I'll vote for you. And then Barack Obama, even, who I didn't vote for, was labeled the deporter-in-chief by the left because his Department of Homeland Security secretary deported so many people that it angered the left. So in this time, like 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, now we have a party where they embrace Kamala Harris, who wants to only ban fracking, end the fossil fuel industry, wants to end all offshore drilling, wants to abolish ICE, doesn't support border wall construction, does not support Remain in Mexico policy, supports reparations for slavery, supports violent criminals voting, from jail, supports expanding the Supreme Court, supports redirecting resources away from police. That means defund the police, supports ending cash bail laws, supports ending private health insurance. Are you kidding me? And opposes voter ID. You get the point. This is a radical person who eventually, here we are, 12 days since she basically became the Democratic nominee. She has yet to answer one question from the press. She looked like Christian McCaffrey running away from the press when she did a tarmac interview earlier, not an interview. She made a statement and then ran. She won't answer any questions because this is indefensible. When Donald Trump gets her on a debate stage, it's going to be June 27th, Atlanta, Joe Biden all over again. That I can guarantee you.
Why do you think that is? Just because she is so flip-flopping all over the place?
I think, Rita, honestly, you and I can speak outside of a teleprompter, outside of prepared remarks. You do radio and podcasts. I do radio. I do television. We can speak on our own 2 feet. When she is taken out of a teleprompter, as we saw during the 2020 campaign, where she didn't even get to 2020, didn't get one Democratic vote, or in 2024, or all her time during vice president, it's a 1,000-island word salad where you can't understand exactly what she's saying. So the minute she has to answer any question, it's why she didn't go to the National Association for Black Journalists event yesterday in Chicago. The reason why she didn't do that is because she knew she'd have to take questions from Harris Faulkner, who's a seasoned journalist, will actually ask tough questions. She can't handle it. It's clean up on aisle 5, 17, 24, and 28 every time she opens her mouth outside of a teleprompter, just like Biden. And that's why I think once she debates Donald Trump, and if he's prepared and hammers her on all the things we just talked about, it's over. I'm sorry. It's over.
What do you think are the biggest issues, too? I mean, let's kind of go through them. First is the defund the police, like you talked about. She was supporting the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and that bailed out a lot of the folks, of course, in the summer of 2020. And there are reports that she's still continuing to support them. She's also seen on, with Stephen Colbert saying they should protest and they should continue protesting. What message does that send at a time where people are really worried about restoring law and order to America?
Rita, 200 cops, more than 200 police officers have been shot this year alone. We just barely entered August. How do you explain that to those families, to those people in those communities, that actually it's better to have less police than more police? I literally have that quote in my book where she argues, it's in writing, it's verbatim, that having less police doesn't necessarily mean that you will lower crime. I mean, these are things that are completely illogical. Forget being Democrat or Republican. Common sense. Do you want yourself and your family to be protected and safe in any community? And if you think that, then you can't possibly vote for this person who believes in reimagining and defunding the police as if that's some sort of solution. But I don't even know, she's going to reverse herself on all these things because she only wants power. It's all about the perks. It's all about the presidency. It's all about the legacy. She could say, yay, I'm the first female president. I'm the first person of color to achieve this. She just wants the title. Does she actually want to govern? I think she's like a weather vane in terms of her principles. I don't think she has any. It's whatever she has to say to get elected, and that's where we're at this point. We'd rather have somebody principled like Donald Trump, who is very consistent in what he says and authentic in the way he says it.
What about also the issue of open borders? Because it's interesting. There was just an ad that came out, Joe Concha, just recently, and it sort of epitomizes, what you're talking about in your book, but talk about spin control, where she says essentially she's better on the border than President Trump. It's like almost Orwellian what we're seeing.
Oh, that's great. 10 million people have entered this country since Kamala Harris was appointed border czar. What's 10 million people? Because sometimes, in our business, we throw out numbers, but we don't give it context. The context is that 10 million is more than the total population of 40 U.S. states. Think about that for a moment. And the fact that hundreds, if not thousands, of terrorists have entered this country through our southern border is a national security nightmare. We could be looking at another October 7th all over again. So when she claims this, the gaslighting that's going on, I guess she thinks she could get away with it because our stupid, corrupt, dishonest media won't call her out on saying something like that. Wait a minute, you think you're tougher on the border than Donald Trump? Why don't we just compare the two records? 474 terrorists have been apprehended at the U.S. southern border. Those are the bad ones, I guess, because they got caught. Under Donald Trump, how many crossed the border from 2017 to 2021? 14. That's it. So what are we talking about here? It's amazing what she's saying and what she's doing, but I think the honeymoon's going to be over very soon, Rita, because once she has to answer one question or debate Donald Trump, I'm telling you, this thing goes sideways in a hurry, and he wins all those swing states that matter, and that's all that matters, quite frankly, in any presidential election, particularly now.
Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
You know, as you're talking about the border, too, do you think that they're just hoping that people will forget about the last, 3.5 years or so? Are there people out there who maybe haven't been as tuned in to the facts or to the election that maybe might listen to it and go, oh, well, maybe that's the case? I mean, are there really people out there? Or do you think it's just so transparent, especially when it comes to the border?
I will say this, Rita. Mitt Romney, I don't think was a very good presidential candidate, but he did say one truthful thing, and it was caught on tape during some sort of like donor dinner, where he said that 47% of the country automatically is not going to vote for me because they like free stuff. And that's kind of accurate, right? Like some people they're going to vote against the Republican because maybe they actually have to work. They're not going to be handed things for free, or maybe it's just this, reflexive thing against Republicans, and especially Donald Trump. All of that said, I think people also look at their bank accounts and they see that it's shrinking, that they're tapping into their savings because they have so much credit card debt. They've been paying the minimum payment. They're just paying off interest in essence. And they have to keep diving into savings, and they can't keep up with inflation because their wages aren't keeping up with inflation. So I think if people look at their bank accounts and they feel their communities aren't as safe, especially in urban areas like Detroit, like Philadelphia, like Atlanta, like Los Angeles, Chicago, and so on, and then when they see what's going on at the border and they feel the world is just not as stable as it was under Trump, let's face it, it's not even remotely close. I think once they think about, maybe I don't like Trump in terms of the way he says things sometimes, the way he conducts himself, but my family and my own individual self was better off under Trump than it ever was under Harris and Biden. I think that'll be the choice ultimately that tips the scales to the former president. He's your 47th president.
You talked about also energy and fracking. She's on record saying that she's against fracking. And yet now, it's like she's like, what? Oh, I didn't really say that. Is she realizing just how detrimental it is that we also have to start drill, baby, drill just to keep our economy going at this time?
Well, that's the thing, Rita. She hasn't said it that, actually, I'm for fracking. It's through like a campaign spokesperson or it's through like a leaked source. She won't even go in front of a microphone and declare, okay, actually, I'm for fracking, even though I said, and this is literally a quote, I'm 100% against fracking. That's what she said on CNN when she was running for president in 2020. And she says she has a history in fighting this issue as far as fighting for ending fracking. I just think that she thinks, I suppose, that the press is going to carry her over the finish line, and they will try, believe me. But in the end, thank God there are radio shows and podcasts like the ones we have from Rita Cosby, like channels like Fox News and Newsmax and obviously social media under Elon Musk and X. It really does level the playing field because you could fact check this stuff, send out the viral videos. There's one that's out now that already has over 1 million views, where Kamala Harris is saying we should never say Merry Christmas again because illegal immigrants and their children won't have a Merry Christmas unless they have free health care. I mean, you can't make this up, but this just got unearthed, and now it's being played everywhere. So I think CNN and MSNBC can say all the things they want. They get a couple 100,000 viewers. Big deal. On social media, you see some of these videos, and they get 10, 15 million views. So I think maybe there's a chance that the truth gets out there because of social media, shows like yours, and networks like mine that I appear on.
You talked about also the media's role. I think about what just happened recently at the National Association of Black Journalists, where the journalist goes to introduce Trump and doesn't even introduce him. I mean, just goes right into it. And I thought, boy, if Kamala Harris was being introduced, it should be a different way. And I'm one of those people Well, Joe, I try to treat everybody with respect, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, whoever it was. If I was interviewing President Obama, I would say President Obama. I would speak with him with respect. He's a president, and earn that respect. There's a respect to the office, no matter political party strife or whatever the case is. Why is it that the media seems to be so, I guess, in the tank for Democrats and many progressives?
Well, I talk about this in the book, Progressively Worse, why today's Democrats ain't your daddy's donkeys. And I think 65, 70%, and you're going to say I'm lowballing it, but then I'll put it at that. 65, 70% of so-called journalists, reporters, people in media are Democrats. Then I think 25% are people that got into the business so they could actually be journalists, so they could actually speak truth to power and hold the powerful accountable regardless of party. And then those 25%, I think, are scared out of their minds now because they saw certain situations where journalists tried to be journalists and they were bullied and they were threatened as far as they're losing their jobs or never getting that next contract. And I point to in the book, I should say, two examples. Dasha Burns, NBC News reporter. She interviews John Fetterman, and afterwards she reports that Fetterman, and this is before the 2022 midterms when clearly he did not have his cognitive abilities about him because of a stroke, she said that Fetterman couldn't basically have a conversation, that he had to follow closed captioning on a screen, that you couldn't just basically have a back and forth with him. And she got eviscerated. You had people like Kara Swisher out there. You had other news outlets saying she should be fired for even daring to report what she saw and what she observed. So then other journalists see this and they say, oh, my God, if I don't conform and I don't get along to get along and I don't toe the Democratic Party line, I'm not getting that next contract. I am not going to be on TV too much longer or a reporter too much longer. And we saw that with CNN, right? Just last year, they gave Donald Trump a town hall and everybody on that network completely and totally the inmates revolted completely against the network president at the time, Chris Licht, and eventually led to his firing. Anderson Cooper literally went on the air the night after Trump's town hall and said, I know you were disturbed by what you saw last night. I don't blame you if you never watch this network again. Can you believe this? Or MSNBC, Ronna McDaniel, they hire her, one Trump supporter, one semi-conservative that could go on there and make a decent argument against all the liberals that are on there, and she was out in 48 hours. So that's what's going on with our media right now. It is a mob mentality where if you even remotely go against the grain and don't support Democrats and don't eviscerate Republicans, you will be eliminated. And that's a scary time right now. Because at least Fox, I could say, we have Jessica Tarloff, we have Harold Ford Jr., we have other liberals that are on there, Kevin Walling, and it's nice to have a different perspective once in a while because, I don't know, maybe that makes things kind of interesting to hear the other side. But those networks and some papers like the New York Times, they will never go down that route. New York Times has not endorsed a Republican presidential candidate since 1956. The Washington Post has never endorsed any Republican presidential candidate in its history. And they're supposed to be the two leading newspapers. Go figure, Rita.
Wow. And also, Joe Concha, how did we get to this point? You talk about it in your book, Progressively Worse. You talk about how, like, JFK, Tip O'Neill, or even Bill Clinton, this would not be their party anymore. How did it get to where it seems like such an ultra-progressive on one end, where even some of these, legendary Democrats might not fit in the party? What transformed it to this moment?
I think two things, Rita. I think it was social media. When that came about and became a big deal, suddenly people like AOC, Eric Swalwell, Adam Schiff, Rashida Tlaib, they exist not to actually work with the other side, compromise, and make the country better through better policy. They exist for likes and for retweets and for getting invited onto Stephen Colbert. Like, basically, that's the goals, right? And I also think that we used to have networks like MSNBC used to have hosts like Tucker Carlson or Michael Savage or Jesse Ventura, my old boss over at Media, Dan Abrams, like people that were either to the left or in the center, but they had different voices. And then suddenly Keith Olbermann takes over the network, basically, and Rachel Maddow then follows, and then Joy Reid's failing upwards and getting all these promotions. And now like we just talked about with Ronna McDaniel, they will not allow any conservative voices on there in any way, shape, or form. So between MSNBC and CNN going far to the left, and then social media pushing the Democratic Party to the left, that's it. And one other chapter in the book, Rita, is hilarious, because I talk about in 2019, CNN goes to every Democratic presidential candidate in the primary, and they say, we want to give you each an hour on our network for a town hall. What do you say? And they all agree to it. And then they say, oh, by the way, there's one little catch. The town halls could only be about, and this is how they labeled it, the climate crisis. Oh, so if you're the governor of Montana and you want to talk about economic policy, energy, foreign policy, immigration, nope, you could only talk about one topic. It's the climate crisis. So I think the media really pushed the Democratic Party into this direction. And then people like Joe Biden watch Joe and Mika every day on Morning Joe and believe actually the things that they're saying, and they're lunatics. And I think that's what drives this. MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, all going so far and hard to the left that the Democratic Party followed it, thinking that's the pulse of the country. And it simply is not, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, Joe Concha, you have so many blockbusters here. I think it is so important. It is so timely. I think you're going to have another huge bestseller, my friend. And everybody be sure to subscribe and share to this awesome podcast. Joe Concha, we love you. We appreciate you. And so great to have you here, my friend.
Rita, that's so nice. Thank you so much. And let's do this like every week. I want to be on with Rita Cosby, because this is the show to be heard. That I know.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.